This is Justin Tullie, aka Doch, aka your local cool guy, your local book guy, all that. Yeah, I was born up in Michigan. I moved back and forth a lot from like Michigan, North Carolina, Atlanta, Michigan, all that in my younger years. My father, he was locked up when I was like 2, so I never really had much time with him. And then my stepdad was there since I was like 3 years old. So, you know, that whole situation. So yeah, in grade school, a lot was like, I grew up like around my grandmother. So on my mom's side, so she was awesome. You know, that lady was sent from God for real, you know what I mean? So my mom, based on what I know, you know what I'm saying, it was like she was having some troubles or whatever like that, so she moved down to North Carolina, and then my grandmother came up and got me. And then we just kind of like, you know, I was there from about probably 3 to 5 up in Michigan. Moved down to like Atlanta for a little bit with my family, with my mom. And by that time I had another little brother. So I had like 2 little brothers by that time. From what I remember, we were house to house, and then sometimes like in hotels. I don't know exactly what I was thinking at that time, but like sometimes I have like flashbacks. Like I remember like us eating chicken in the morning on like in front of like a Kroger's in Atlanta or something like that. You know what I mean? Just moments of like, just feeling lonely. You know, me and my stepdad, he wasn't really, I wasn't the biggest fan of him, like as a kid, as a baby. From what I remember, he was very hard on me as a kid. Like I was a kid, like I said that you're not my dad. I was like 4 years old, and he threw me up against the wall, threw me like across the room, and then put me outside in my underwear at a hotel. Like we were joking around from what I understand, and then he did that. His family, not really like, at that time, not really like, not showing that they cared about us that much. It was only like one little brother from my mom's side. He was his. If my family sees this or whatever, like this is just what I'm remembering as a kid. My grandma didn't like him anyways. So when I moved back up to Atlanta, she was like, what did he do to you? Like, you know, real questioning and stuff like that. And I wasn't a big fan of his. And so like, you know, I cried to her and she just babied me. It was lovely. She was like all I knew. Like, it still like bothers me today, like that instability, because like my fantasy of like the best night, like going home, like it's a weird fantasy I have. And it's just like driving at night on the highway, city lights and everything like that, and having this feeling in my heart like wherever I'm going, this is my place. So I think that goes back to just my childhood, not really knowing like from day to day how things are gonna be, my parents' mood, you know, at times, like later on I'll explain that, but like when we were eating and just things like that. To continue, like I was in Michigan from like 6 to like 12, and it's 4 of us. And between my mom and my stepdad is me, my brother Jordan, my other little brother DeHandre, and then Derek. And my 2 little brothers, they got a little more like, they got babied a little longer than me and my brother Jordan, just because like, I think it's just because they were my stepdad's like biological kids. It is what it is, you know what I'm saying? At 7 years old, I was molested by my next door neighbor. And like, I never told my parents. That's just like a whole other thing. And I never really told anybody. Not till I was older, not till I was like probably 21, between 20 and 21. Like, I don't even think it was confidence. I think it was just me. Growing up millennial, man, like our generation was the last of that generation that was like, boys don't cry. So being vulnerable and everything like that, you know, going through foster care and everything, you don't show those vulnerabilities, you know what I'm saying? You keep all that hidden. Grade school, man, like I was like up in Michigan, I was one of the only black kids at the school. It was me and like maybe one black family or something like that, from what I remember. And they made sure that we knew, you know what I'm saying? Like going to church with my grandmother, like we weren't really like welcomed around a whole lot. My brother, I got an older brother who's like all the way white. I'm black and white. He's all the way white because my mom had a husband before me, and he was white. So yeah, we weren't invited to to his graduation because we were black. I got called the N-word. When I told the principal, she was like, what did you do to that kid to have you called that? I got called colored. I thought it was just like part of you know, being. But later I told like family I have out in Vegas, and I just broke down, man, because I was like, a child isn't supposed to go through this. That was my elementary years, you know what I mean? Like just playing sports. I played baseball. I was a pretty good athlete growing up. You know, that was kind of where I got my like recognition from the other kids. We moved to Florida when I was like 12, turning 13, and it was a culture shock, man. I never grew up around like Caribbeans, Hispanic, you know, a whole lot of black people. So like it was definitely a culture shock for me, from the way we speak, from everything, you know what I mean? And so like, yeah, that was like a bumpy ride. I didn't have anybody teaching me about my emotions. My stepdad was really like, just don't cry, you know what I'm saying? And so like I had moments where I just like cried to myself. When we moved down here to Florida, it was a lot of, we were hotels, motels, we were homeless. We were homeless probably like all together from like when I was 12 to about 16. Maybe there was like 6 to 8 months in between that time where we had like a solid like apartment and everything like that. But like a lot of that time was like spent homeless. Like my parents were drug dealers, they were drug users, they dealt in prostitute. It was a lot of stuff. So, you know, I'm in and out of hotels, we in and out of hotels, I'm seeing different things. I really don't know, bro. Like based on like what I know now, like working with like youth and everything, and like know the system a little better, and then you being part like, you know, working with the system, I really don't know how we escape that. Every day I wish it would happen. When I got in foster care, bro, I was like, oh yeah, they can terminate their rights, do that thing, you know what I'm saying? Like, I was like, I don't want to live in this environment. You know, I had that kind of mindset. A lot of it goes back to like how my parents treated me. I was called stupid, ignorant. I remember when I was 10, my stepdad hit my mom in like the head with like a crutch. And I called the police, we got police there and everything. And like when my mom went, like the next day, my mom went and bailed my stepdad out. She bailed my dad out, and then on the ride home, I got called everything in the book by the child of God. So after that, I was like, oh yeah, my mom, like don't nobody mess with me like that. Like people, like I didn't feel like, you know how like kids like, oh my parents are my superheroes, my dad can beat your dad up. Like none of that. I didn't share my life with them, and I never told them any of my crushes or anything like that, like growing up, because I didn't feel like part of them. Coming back down here to Florida, you know, dealing with everything that I was like, if I told anybody and they came and interviewed us, like we're screwed, you know what I'm saying? So it was that fear in my head. But like me and my brothers, we were very like on point, like just being out in the streets. Like we stayed at Metropolitan Ministries for some time. It was like when the Bucks first won the first Super Bowl against Oakland. I remember watching the game there. My dad, he was in jail for like, I think, credit card fraud. And my mom was like raising us. She just went off track. We got a hotel, and her and my dad were like, you know, doing stuff, and she failed a drug test. So we had to leave the shelter. And through this whole time, me and my brothers, we kept ourselves up. You know what I mean? You wouldn't see us dirty. You wouldn't see us just being out here just looking homeless. Like we weren't like asking people for money, for food and all that stuff. I know like the school knew, because I was like always on the list to get Christmas presents from the school and all that stuff. So they kept it pretty low key. And then a couple of my friends, like they used to buy me clothes and stuff, and like, you know, make sure I was straight, you know what I'm saying? I got so used to not knowing what things were gonna be, like out in the streets and stuff like that, that it was like, all right, like we gotta like kind of button up. It took a little bit for me to like get that, because you know I was still a kid. Like I was out here, you know, smoking weed, running around, doing whatever. You know what I'm saying? When I first came in contact for real with you know, Child and Family Services, I was 16. It was 3 days for Christmas, 2005, and the Green Team. If you're from Tampa, you know what the Green Team is. They did a raid on the house where my parents were selling out. They were like, we started squatting the house. I remember making a phone call when we had to use payphones. I called one of my homeboys. I was like, man, I think something's about to go down. I had that intuition, and then like I seen cars like growing up in that environment, you know when you're being watched. You know what I'm saying? You always know what, like, peeping what's going on. Ran through the house. I had a rifle put in my face. They found over 25 people in the house. My parents were cooking, serving, all that. You know what I'm saying? Went into custody then. My mom told me that my dad thought I snitched on him. And when she said that, I was like, oh yeah, like, I don't want nothing to do with y'all. Cause y'all blaming me for stuff y'all, like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm a kid. No, you know what I'm saying? And you're blaming me for you getting caught? For you y'all were stupid and y'all got caught? I remember one time I was in the house and like, it was late at night. Like, there were like people running in and out or whatever like that. And like, I had a little like 22 under my pillow. And this dude was like running, he was being loud or whatever like that. So I came out, I was like, bro, you gotta get out of here, man. He started like talking crazy. So I just was like, bro, you gotta get out of here, bro. And I remember like holding that gun to his face. And after that, I threw the gun away, you know what I'm saying? And cause that scared me. After I got into foster care, it really like changed my perspective on things. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, we like, as we're kids, we're like, oh, that's stupid. Why would like this, that, and the third? And it's like, when you're an adult, like, you realize everything like was for a reason. You know what I mean? Going into foster care, man, that was different, bro. I was like the smallest dude in the house, was in a group home. Throughout my life, God's always had favor of me. Like, yeah, I might have been in like wild situations with my parents and my brothers and everything like that. But he's always made sure that like at the end of the day, you know, me and my brothers were straight. You know what I'm saying? And like, God always had like his angels protecting us. I truly believe that. Like, when like people talk about, you know, all this super spiritual stuff, I can say that like God really like had his hand over us, even when we were in the wilderness like that. So anyway, it's like, so I was in the foster care system for about 2 years. I mean, it wasn't bad. Like, you know, I learned what I need to learn. I didn't learn enough to be a grown up. You know what I'm saying? So I'm still learning some of those lessons. But like, you know, when you come out of foster care, like, they expect you to be a full grown adult. I was still in high school. You know what I mean? Like, I was still like, you know, dealing with high school stuff. I got an apartment in my like 12th grade year. You know, first half of the year, I was out here like wilding. As in teenagers and everything, yeah, me and my friends did some things, whatever, sold some things, everything like that. It was cool, whatever. But I'm like talking about like girls over at the crib, bro, like not caring. You know what I'm saying? I was just like out here, you know what I mean, on that kind of tip. And it was a different life I was living. Bro, like honestly, where we come from, you don't expect to make it over 21. You know what I'm saying? So being 18 with an apartment, I was living. I mean, I wasn't crazy living, but I was living. But just like going into my adult years, you know, first half of my 18th year, I had the apartment. I was in high school, I was wilding. Second half, I met my best friend Jabo, who's like in the interview, he right here. I'm gonna tell y'all the story of how when I met him and how like crazy it was. I was telling people, yeah, I wanna rap about something deeper. I wanna rap about Christ. Because, you know, I knew about Christ, I didn't know about Christ like that though. Everybody was like, yeah, you gotta meet Jabo, da-da-da-da, this, that, and the third, because, you know, they all knew about crossover and everything, and that he rapped and beatboxed. When we first met, he was like, all right, rap for me. So I spit like a little freestyle. It was like, he said, all right, that's cool. And then, like, we just kind of, after that, it was just like, we was best friends. You know what I'm saying? He picked me up for church. I was right down the street from him. And second thing I remember, second funny story, is the first time he had came over my apartment. Anybody who knows me knows that I'm like not the neatest person in the world. So the way that the apartment was set up, it was like student housing, like for colleges. You had like your room and then you share like the kitchen and living room with like college kids, you know what I'm saying? So I'm a high school kid in there. And so Jabo had came over, and this is when I was rocking chains. You know, cats rock chains now, bro. I was doing that. And Jabo can attest. Jabo can tell you, bro. Bro, let me tell you something. So he had came over and he helped me clean my place up and everything like that. Got rid of a lot of stuff. Ever since that, it was like we was like this. You know what I mean? Through our like college years, you know, going through like that. I think that was like probably some of the most stable years of my life when I was running with like Jabo, Don't Conform. Like if you was in the Christian hip hop community back then, like you knew about Don't Conform. Like, we was rocking out at Crossover, you know what I'm saying? HGA on all them cats. Like, we were like at the start of that stuff. So yeah, it's 2008, 2009, 2010, like that 2.5, 3 year period. So yeah, we was running around the city, wilding, doing whatever. Like I said, that was like probably one of the most stable times in my life. Like, not only just having a good time, but like, you know, God was really ministering to me. I was in Trinity Bible College, which we were going to school for theology. I think I was caught up in like the tribe, you know what I mean? I was caught up in like, oh, we going doing concerts, oh, we doing this and that and the third, and people like, oh, like y'all like, oh, we want to rock with y'all. Like, I got really like big-headed, you know what I'm saying? And I think the enemy used that. Probably about 22 or 23, I wind up moving to New Orleans and helping out with a church up there. And you know, I was rapping, everything, doing Christian hip hop. And then I thought I had a real connection with Christ. I think all Christians have moments where they're like, man, am I cut out for this? You know what I mean? I felt moments where I was just so alone that I'm like, man, God, like, is this where you have me? You know what I mean? And so I walked away from God, you know, and there's a whole backstory to that, and we might get into it in one of these episodes. I wind up leaving the church while I was in New Orleans. And so I met this girl. You know, we moved in together, whatever. And then 2013, I was diagnosed with lupus. Going from like being diagnosed with lupus, I felt like I was like a Superman back then. You know what I mean? I felt like I couldn't be stopped. Like, I was up, I was out there, I was, you know, taking care of what I had to take care of and everything like that, working like 2, 3 jobs, 1 day job, 1 night job, killing it. So yeah, diagnosed with lupus. Slowed me down for a minute, but once I got the hang of it, it kind of died down. I was taking care of myself. So I moved to Alabama with my ex, and we wind up breaking up. At this time, I was in Mobile, Alabama. And I remember I met my first ex-wife. She was dope, but like, I got into the police department. We got married. I remember we got married in like 3-4 months. It was quick, everything was quick. And I didn't really have anybody like guiding me. I was just kind of like out here on my own. You know, I was talking to people back home in Tampa, but I didn't have anybody, you know, guiding me. So I was just out here just kind of like winging it. So we got married, and then I made it through the police department, made it through the academy, and it was smooth. I ain't had no problem with lupus. I was like out here running, push-ups, all that. I looked kind of bigger. So we did that, and then we got divorced in like 2017 over something stupid I was doing. And we'll probably get into those stories later on. You know, I was out here, not part of the church, not trying to be, you know, I was doing fashion shows then. You know, even in the police department, they knew me for fashion, and you know what I mean? Like, being on the police department, like, I seen wild stuff before I went to the police department. Hands down, wild stuff. After I was a police officer, I appreciate life just that much more. You know, when I hear about a kid being shot, or when I hear about, you know, some domestic violence stuff, like, I've been in those moments where it's like life or death, you know what I mean? Like, I ran down somebody, no vest, just a gun, off duty, you know what I mean? And like, just going through stuff like that, you see the world differently. You don't see the world as just people just walking by. You definitely get a chance to see people like for humans and how fragile each person is. Like, you know, we might walk around like we tough and everything like that, but if you got to put on a vest to go and do your job, you realize how fragile everybody is. During that, I met my second ex-wife, and she was like helping me get my fashion stuff together. I did a couple fashion shows, put out some stuff, and people really knew me for fashion and for Blind Eye. When I was with her, I lost 2 partners in the police department. R.I.P. them, man. One of those guys, he was like right next to me in the academy. He was like one of the best cops I knew. So yeah, 2018 probably, I got really sick. I had to do chemo. Like, the beginning of 2018, they thought it was gonna like help my kidneys. Like my kidney doctor, she thought it was gonna help. And so it didn't. I did 4 treatments. Worst thing in the world, bro. Worst thing. It wasn't like the hardest chemo either, But like, I remember my first day after that, like, bro, I couldn't roll over. I couldn't keep water down. And then that smell you get in your mouth with like chemo is just, anybody ever did chemo, they know what I'm talking about. It smells like death. And so, you know, I went through that, and then they stopped that in 2018 when like I went into the hospital, probably started in September, all the way through October, through November, December, halfway through January. I was on like a ventilator, they had to trach me, and I was in a coma for like a month. Yeah, man, I was on my deathbed for a long time. You know, my family, people around me, they remember. Like, it was definitely like I died twice. I don't remember any of it. For real. That's like a big chunk of my life that like is not, I can't really like wrap my head around. And so, so yeah, like going back to the police department, and I had to get on dialysis after a while. And then like all this, me and my ex-wife, we got divorced going through all this. Sorry, it's a bee around here. He wants some of my drink. We wind up getting divorced, and I moved back to Florida. I moved back to Tampa. This is where I feel like my family is, Tampa, Florida. Jabo and his godparents, they treat me like I'm like their kid. You know, I moved back down here. I was like hanging out with all of them, staying with them, and they were making sure I was straight. And I remember a conversation I had in the car with Kayla. We were talking about like, I was like not a police officer anymore. I'm like, man, I'm gonna start, you know, I'm gonna get my medical card. I'm gonna start, you know, and I'm telling them like, I wonder how like it feels to take shrooms and everything. I was like, do you think there's something wrong with me? He was like, no, you're longing for fulfillment. And I remember that conversation. And like, I already got back, and I was like going back to church at Crossover. That was the moment where I was like, you know, like God, like I need you. Because I got all this knowledge, you know what I mean? But like, I just felt like none of that knowledge was like gonna do anything for me. And so, you know, I recommitted my life back to Christ. And it's not even like I wasn't planning to. It was more like me just like when. You know, it was a thing of when. Soon after that, I had to get open heart surgery. So I got open heart surgery. I remember being in the hospital, bro. I had my Bible. By the way, that thing got stolen. It was all marked. It was my favorite freaking Bible, bro. And all my notes and everything. It was beautiful. It was beautiful. But anyways, I was listening to Stephen the Levite, To Die Is Gain, like that whole time. Like every day it would be on repeat in my phone. And like when I came back to Christ, I didn't really know much about Christian hip hop. It changes like year to year. To be gone for 7 to 10 years, like so much changed. And I'm like one of those guys is like, nah, I want to listen to what I want to listen to. Like I'm an old school head, you know what I'm saying, when it comes to Christian hip hop. Going through that, open heart surgery, thing was, I had the joy of the Lord, man. It was a different joy of the Lord than I've ever felt before. Not that it changes, but it was like, I know this is where, like, it's God like telling, like, I'm the one that saved you from all of this nonsense. Like, I've been with you. I've taken you through here to here. You know, it's been me right there by your side. I got like serious again. My studying got serious. My like just going deep got serious. I found myself like back at SEU, you know, working with fashion at different churches and working with different people. Yeah, man, so that's kind of like where I'm at now. I go to SEU. I'm saying we out here thugging, we cooling. You know what I mean? My boy Jabo, we go back like cook crack in the 80s. And my life is water, man. My words of wisdom. Man, joy comes in the morning, bro. Joy comes in the morning, and there's new mercies every single morning. Like, just because it seems dark tonight doesn't mean tomorrow morning is not gonna be, you know, a sunny day. But, you know, those new mercies, like God is with you the whole time, even when you think he's not with you. And those are the moments like we've talked about before, like you have to like know in those moments when you feel like there's nothing around, that like Christ is right there with you. You know what I mean? It says in Hebrews that we have a high priest that has been through the stuff we've been through. Don't give up, even when it seems dark. And yeah, that's gonna be my last words for now.
Love it. Appreciate you, bro.
All right, man.
Doing his thing, man.
We lit.
Cool.